Okay, I'm going to get started by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today is what we call our Pali Canon and English study group, which I'll explain to you guys what that is in a little bit. This individual who we refer to as the Buddha, 2,500 years ago, he figured out how to get to enlightenment. Enlightenment is a mental state that you can attain in this life where your mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will have eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All this can be eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. Oftentimes people think that it's other people who are causing you to experience certain feelings, but it's actually coming from your own mind. This is why you can eliminate it through training of the mind. And this individual, the Buddha, he figured out how to do this 2,500 years ago, and then he spent the rest of his life sharing his teachings to be able to help others to understand how to get to that same mental state. So what I do here is I help people to be able to understand this path that he taught so that you can actually train your mind and experience the same results. So I'd like to welcome you guys here, and anybody who's joining online, whether it's your first time here, you've been joining multiple times. And what we're going to do to start our class is we're going to start with meditation. So I'll guide you guys in a meditation session, and then afterwards I'll explain to you guys what the Pali Canon and English study group is. We start our meditation with some chanting in order to ease into the meditation. It actually helps to get more benefit out of the meditation itself. If you guys would like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. We have the chants over there on a laminated sheet on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself and get one. For those of you guys that are online, you'll find this on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. You can click on free books and then just scroll down towards the middle of the page and you'll see the daily chanting sheets there. During the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students to commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. This is how they were able to learn the teachings, where today we might use books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, things like this. They didn't have those 2,500 years ago. YouTube hadn't been invented yet, right? The internet didn't exist. So they just used chanting or recitation of the teachings in order to be able to commit them to their memory and then actually be able to practice them and get the results of the enlightened mental state. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. It's today used just to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. If you end up getting one of these sheets and you see the English translations on it, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students either during his life or after his death, because the Buddha wouldn't have walked around and said, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me, right? This would be ego or arrogance. And by the time you get to enlightenment, you don't have ego. So I suspect that these were created by his students either during his life or after his death. Because if you learn from a teacher how to move from anger, sadness, frustration, and all those other discontent feelings to this peaceful and joyful mental state that is enlightenment, and this teacher didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, you might actually have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. Because the Buddha just taught out of the kindness of his heart. He wasn't required to teach. He just chose to do that in order to help people out of loving kindness and compassion for them. So you're welcome to chant along, and you'll see that you'll get more benefit out of the meditation itself. Once we're in the meditation, I'm going to be providing you some guidance, where I'm going to be instructing you and teaching you how to meditate while we're actually meditating. Then there's going to be a period of time of quietness where we're just all meditating. Everybody here at the temple and everybody online, we're just going to be meditating together. Now, during that period of time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. There might be a car that goes by. There might be a dog barking, a bird chirping. Someone here might cough or sneeze or something like that. This is normal. The world is full of impermanence, but the unenlightened mind craves permanence. And when you're in meditation, if you're craving permanent silence and you hear a sound, you will cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. So you need to get to the point where you understand the world around you is constantly changing. As long as your mind is craving permanence, you will cause your mind to be frustrated, annoyed, or some other discontent feeling when you're not getting what you want. So there's going to be sounds in our environment here. Those sounds are going to arise, they're going to change, and then they're going to fade away. This is impermanence. So if you're in meditation understanding that, when you hear a sound, it's like, well, of course, that's normal. Sounds are going to arise, change, and fade away. So as we're in meditation, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand some of the teachings of the Buddha. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would use these different positions at different times. It's kind of like having a tool belt that you learn these different positions and then you employ these different tools at different times. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position, and that's how they're starting out. So I'll give you guys some guidance on the seated position, and then we have other programs and courses and retreats where you can learn these other positions. So if you're on the floor in a chair, maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench, a sofa, or a wheelchair, you can sit however you like. There's not just one way to sit, because that would be permanence, and we live in an impermanent world. So everybody's body is going to experience something different, and you'll find whatever is comfortable for you. So you can use what I'm sharing with you as recommendations or suggestions, but you can also come up with something on your own too. It's as long as the body's comfortable. You're not interested in the body being painful, and you're not interested in being luxurious. You would like it to be in the middle where it's comfortable. So if you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of help soften your seat. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross leg position, you like to just do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, this can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angles at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people just rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. And then the same thing is true for anybody who's in a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting here in a chair with my legs crossed, so this is an option as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect. With the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll help keep the mind attentive and alert in the meditation. Because what meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities. So you like your mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched like this, your mind would have a tendency to be kind of dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid with the upper body, your mind could be overactive or uptight. So you like the upper body to be erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back, because not only does it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it also makes it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to do some chanting on the way in. You're welcome to join in. And then afterwards, I'll come back in with the guidance to be able to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Wat Tung Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Namang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savakasangko Sanghang namami Namo rasa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังปุตโตภะคะวะติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหะกวาพุทธังมหากวันหังอภิวาเทมิ สวากขาโตมหากวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหากวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. This is called breathing mindfulness meditation. This is a primary form of training in addition to other things that the Buddha used in order to train his mind to get to enlightenment. There's more than just meditation that you would need in order to get to enlightenment. Sometimes people think that the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated, and instantly got to enlightenment. And this isn't actually true. It was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. So while you wouldn't be able to meditate your way to enlightenment, you actually wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without meditation either. So you're going to need this as part of your practice. What this is doing for you is it's helping you to develop mindfulness or awareness of mind and concentration. Those are the wholesome qualities that you're exercising the mind to develop, where you have awareness of your mind and your concentration, your focus, so that in your day-to-day life you can use those qualities. And then you're also training your mind to let go. This is the unwholesome quality that you're training your mind to eliminate, that the mind in the unenlightened state will tend to hold on. This is called craving, desire, attachment, wants, expectations, clinging, where the mind will hold on and crave permanence. And then you can only be happy when you get what you want. And then when you're not getting what you want, your mind experiences anger, sadness, frustration, or others. So oftentimes people think that it's the outside world that's causing your discontent feelings, but you can peer into this and see for yourself that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. For example, if you got a brand new car and you drove that to a store and you parked it at the store and you went inside and you came out and there's a scratch on your car, if you get angry or frustrated in this situation, it's not the scratch that's causing it. it. And it's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing that anger and frustration is the mind is craving for this car to be permanently beautiful, when in reality, this car is not permanent. The paint's going to fade, the tires are going to need to be changed, the upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. But if you crave permanence, then when you see this scratch, your mind's not going to like it. So one way to say it is that the mind craves permanence, but another way to say it is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. That's why if you look at your life and you see in situations where you are experiencing the most change, that's where you're having the most difficulties. Like maybe you were changing jobs or changing living locations, or you were changing relationships. This was very challenging for you during that period of time in your life. And the thing is that you're in a world full of change. Everything around you is constantly changing, but the mind craves permanence. So this meditation, along with other things, is training your mind to not hold on and crave permanence so that you can let go. If you think about maybe a boyfriend or girlfriend that you guys broke up, for the first period of time when you guys broke up, maybe you were angry or frustrated or lonely or bored, or maybe you were missing this person. This is because your mind was holding on. At some point, though, you let go. Maybe you haven't, though. I've heard of some people 5-10 years out of a relationship, they're still feeling feelings from that relationship. What's happening here is the mind's holding on and craving for this person to be in your life permanently, where in reality, they're not permanent. Every single one of us are impermanent. People are coming and going in and out of your life all the time, but the mind craves permanence. So when people are coming and going in and out of your life, when you have someone new come into your life, you'll be so happy, but then when they leave, you'll be sad or frustrated because the mind's holding on and craving permanence. Oftentimes people think this is love or your care or your concern, but it's actually your mind holding on and craving permanence. So with this meditation and other teachings as well, you can train your mind to let go. And now you can be peaceful and joyful when you have a new person that comes in your life, great. But when they leave and they're no longer part of your life, you can understand that they're not part of your life anymore and people are going to come and go. So there's various teachings that you need in order to be able to move your mind to enlightenment. This is just one meditation out of others that the Buddha taught, and there's other teachings as well. So I have various programs here that I help students to be able to understand the path to enlightenment based on the original words of the Buddha. Oftentimes people aren't studying with the original teachings of the Buddha. That might be a surprise to you, but the original teachings of the Buddha are in 45 volumes of books that are this thick. It's referred to as the Pali Canon. The reason why it's referred to that way is because the original language that these teachings were captured in is Pali. So they call it the Pali Canon. It's 45 large volumes of books that are this thick. And it's so expensive to print out that the average person doesn't actually have a version of it. Because here in Thailand, for example, it would take you about 3 months of your salary to have a complete collection of these books, right? So the average person doesn't typically study with the original words of the Buddha. But what we've done as part of our community is we've consolidated this into 13 books, and then we give it away at no cost. If you would like to get versions of these books, you can actually download them from our website for free. You can take them and go print them yourself if you like. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order them on Amazon. And now you have access to the original words of the Buddha, and you can see what did he teach and what he didn't teach. So while I have various programs here where I teach students and I help them to be able to gradually learn these teachings, there's foundational programs where what we do is we focus on this first book. It's called Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This is the first book of the book series. And what I do is on Sundays and Wednesdays is I gradually walk students through this chapter by chapter over a 7-month period. We go chapter by chapter. And tomorrow we're going to be in chapter 3 because we just recently restarted this program. This chapter is titled Enlightenment. What is enlightenment? And in that particular chapter, you learn all about what enlightenment is, because then you'll be able to more easily navigate your way to it. If you didn't understand what enlightenment is, you wouldn't be able to navigate your way to it. So tomorrow I'm going to be teaching at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. here, helping people to understand what enlightenment is and sharing that with you and helping you to understand it. And then we have other courses and programs and things like this that you can participate in either here at the temple, or we live stream all of our programs so you can watch through YouTube, Facebook, Zoom, and if you can't attend live, it's recorded so you can watch it at your own leisure. And you can even get personal guidance. This is all available to you at no cost. And then on Saturdays, what I do is I have what's called the Pali Canon in English study group, where in those other programs we study volume 1. In this program, we study volume volumes 2 through 13. This is a 1.5-year program where each Sunday we come together and I just teach you a few of the individual chapters. This particular Sunday, we're actually in this book. Saturday, we're actually in this book. It's the volume 3 because we actually just restarted this program too. It's titled Foundation in the Teachings, and we're going to be exploring starting with chapter 11 today. But we do this program a little bit different, where the other programs is more of a traditional style of learning, where I teach for like 15, 20, 30 minutes, and I open up for questions and teach another 15, 20, 30 minutes, open up for questions. In this program, what we do is I invite people here at the temple and anybody joining online to be able to read one of these chapters from the Buddha. This is actually his teachings. This one is titled 4 Sources of Depletion and Accumulation of Wealth. He's going to teach you how to accumulate wealth, because oftentimes people think enlightened beings are poor and you have to live in a cave and you have to wear rags and stuff like this. Well, some people choose to do that, but that's not what you have to do in order to get to enlightenment. You can actually be wealthy and get to enlightenment, but it's just that you're not tied to your wealth, or you're not holding on to your wealth. And you would have actually attained your wealth in an ethically and morally responsible way. So we're going to study this particular chapter and some others as well. And if you'd like to volunteer to read this chapter, it's actually quite short. You can see here it's about a page and just a little bit right here. So if you'd like to volunteer to read this chapter, if you're here at the temple, we have microphones in the middle of the room in the white bowl. All you got to do is come get a microphone, take it back to your seat, press the gray button. You'll see the lights come on. We actually have microphones here too. You'll see the lights come on. You can just hold it up to your chin and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these microphones with you, because you might have a question or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share it with them. And then if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll be helpful so we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then for anybody who's online, you can ask questions through putting that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand electronically in Zoom, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like that way. So is there anybody who would like to volunteer to read this first chapter, either here or online? Joe? Yeah, sure. Go for it.
All right, this is chapter 11. 4 sources of depletion and accumulation of the wealth. The 4 sources of depletion of the wealth. Baya Gapaja, the wealth thus amassed has 4 sources of depletion. 1, womanizing. 2, drunkenness and heedlessness. 3, gambling. 4, unwholesome friendship, unwholesome companionship, and unwholesome camaraderie. Bhayagapaja, just as if there were a large reservoir with 4 inlets and 4 outlets, and a man would close the inlets and open the outlets. Sufficient rain does not fall. One could predict the water in the reservoir to decrease rather than increase. Bhayagapaja, so the wealth thus amassed has 4 sources of depletion. 1, womanizing. 2, drunkenness, heedlessness. 3, gambling. 4, unwholesome friendship, unwholesome companionship, and unwholesome camaraderie. The 4 sources of accumulation of the wealth. Bhayagapaja, the wealth thus amassed has 4 sources of accumulation. 1, one avoids womanizing. 2, one avoids drunkenness and heedlessness. 3, one avoids gambling. 4, one cultivates wholesome friendship, wholesome companionship, and wholesome camaraderie. Bhayagapaja, just as if there were a large reservoir with 4 inlets and 4 outlets, and a man would open the inlets and close the outlets, and sufficient rain falls. One could predict the weather. One could predict the water in the reservoir to increase rather than decrease. Bhayagapaja, so the wealth thus amassed has 4 sources of accumulation. 1, one avoids womanizing. 2, one avoids drunkenness and heedlessness. 3, one avoids gambling. 4, one cultivates wholesome friendship, wholesome companionship, and wholesome camaraderie. These are the 4 things that lead to the welfare and peacefulness of a householder in his very life.
All right. Thank you, sir. So what the Buddha does in his teachings is he's helping you to see the natural laws of existence. What the natural laws of existence are is it's the natural laws that are affecting you in this world, whether you're aware of these natural laws or not. Like the natural law of gravity is a natural law, and it affects every single one of us, whether we're aware of it or not. And when we lacked wisdom in this natural law, we fell down, we bumped our head, we broke our toys, we maybe broke our skin open and we were bleeding and we were crying and crying and crying because we didn't understand the world that we lived in. We were struggling and having difficulties. But slowly but surely, we cultivated wisdom about that natural law of gravity, and now we make wiser decisions because we understand it. You might say that we fully awoke to the natural law of gravity, and that's why we choose to tie our shoes a bit tighter. We look at the surface of the sidewalk as we're walking. We stop being so giddy and bouncing around like a kid all the time, and that's why we can ride bicycles, we can climb ladders, we can get on airplanes and fly all over the world because we now make wise decisions regarding this natural law. We never believed in this natural law. We can actually see it for ourselves, right? We know that it's true. It's right there. We can actually see the natural law of gravity. So the Buddha taught these natural laws, and there's no belief in his teachings. You don't actually believe in what it is that he's sharing. There's no rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. If you're seeing those kinds of things associated with his teachings, he actually didn't teach those things. Those are people who are misunderstanding what he actually taught, and they're modified his teachings at some point during the history from 2,500 years ago, and they're choosing to do those types of things. Instead, what the Buddha is teaching you is how to cultivate wisdom about the natural laws. So you learn, examine, and investigate his teachings. You reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or false, and then you practice his teachings, making decisions through those teachings and that wisdom, and now you'll experience the improvement to the condition of your mind in your life as you're gradually progressing closer and closer to getting awake to these natural laws, where you have wisdom of these natural laws. Because when you live in a world that you don't understand, you will struggle, you will have difficulties. That's what the stress and the anxiety is. That's what the frustration or agitation or annoyance and all these other feelings that you experience, that's the mind struggling in a world that it doesn't understand. So what this particular teaching is doing for you is it's helping you to see the cause and effect between the decrease or accumulation of wealth. And the Buddha is helping you to see this natural law of karma. Now, some people call this karma. You might have heard this word. This is from the Sanskrit language, where the original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language, so we tend to use the Pali word. If this translated to just one English word, I would use it because it'd be easier for everyone, but it doesn't translate to just one English word, so I still need to use this word karma. What it means is cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. It's nothing mystical or magical. It's not about punishments and rewards. It's not about who's to blame or who's at fault. There's no entity or being who's overseeing this natural law. It's literally a sequence of events that whenever you make decisions wisely, you will experience wholesome karma, or wholesome results. And when you make decisions unwisely, you will experience unwholesome karma, or unwholesome results. So this first portion here, he's explaining unwholesome karma. He's explaining what is the cause and effect relationship between the decrease of wealth and what is it, the types of decisions that you would make that would lead to the decrease of your wealth. And this is something that you don't believe, but you learn it, examine it, investigate it, you reflect on it to verify if it's true or false, and then you practice it and you see the results. So if you've ever done any of these things that he's talking about, or you know someone that has, you can independently verify that what he's teaching you is true. Because what he's saying here at the beginning is there's these 4 sources of depletion of wealth. Womanizing, which he's talking to men, so he's talking to people who would be with women. But you could say the other side of this too, which is, if a woman was just going around with lots and lots and lots of different men, or if you have a same gender relationship where maybe they're going around with different partners, everybody could choose whatever they would like to choose. The Buddha doesn't give you rules. He's not giving you commandments. He's not telling you what you should or shouldn't do. He's just helping you understand how to get to this peaceful and joyful life by understanding the world around you. And if you are out there going around with lots of different partners and having lots of different sex with lots of different people, that's going to be expensive to be able to do that kind of thing. And it's going to deplete your wealth. Same thing if you're using substances that cause heedlessness. Here he's talking about drunkenness, but oftentimes oftentimes he uses the word heedlessness, which means where you're unattentive or unaware in your mind, and you're taking some substance in order to produce that, because that's going to deplete your wealth, right? If you've ever maybe smoked cigarettes, or if you smoked marijuana in order to get high, if you've ever used drugs and alcohol, you see that it depleted your wealth, not only because of actually purchasing those things to use it, but then once your mind is heedless and you're drunk or intoxicated or high, you might have actually used your money in unwise ways, and now your money is being depleted during that period of time where your mind is being affected by those drugs and alcohol. Same thing if you've ever done any gambling. You can see that you've had a depletion of wealth because there's never enough and you just keep wanting more and more and more. This is the mind craving and longing, yearning for more and more money. And then if you have unwholesome friendships, companions or comrades, then in this situation, they're going to be doing unwise things, and they're probably going to be coming to you asking you to borrow money, and then they might not be paying you back. Or maybe they're getting in trouble in the legal area. Maybe they're getting arrested and they need to be bonded out of jail or pay for lawyers. And now you're paying for those kinds of things. And now your money is being depleted. So he's helping you to see this cause and effect here. And then, of course, he's using this analogy to be able to help you see that. This is something that people would understand because during his lifetime, 2,500 years ago, a lot of people were farmers. So he gave a lot of farming stories. So here he's talking about a large reservoir with 4 inlets and 4 outlets. And someone would close the inlets and they would open the outlets. And now that's the depletion of the water, that the water is going to go down and there's not very much rainfall. But then he shows you the other side of this too, that if somebody had 4 outlets and 4 inlets and they open the inlets, but they close the outlets, this is going to be an accumulation of water, right? So these are the 4 things that he's saying, that if you avoid this womanizing, if you avoid this drunkenness, if you avoid gambling and you cultivate wholesome friendships, this is going to help you to accumulate wealth. Because if you have people that are into wholesome things, they're going to be doing wholesome things for their life, and they're going to be involving you in those wholesome things because they know you're a wholesome person too. So if you have people who are into wholesome things, you can have business partners, you can have associates, you can have people that are helping to build up your career, and it's going to build up your wealth. So this is the Buddha giving you the guidance of understanding this natural law of cause and effect, that what is it that leads to the depletion of wealth and what is it that leads to the accumulation of wealth. Now, this Pali Canon English study group isn't something that people usually will start in this type of program. All these other foundational programs is where people usually start, but you're going to learn plenty today here learning from this. But just understand that oftentimes people start in the foundational programs, but if this is your first time here, it's okay. You'll still be able to learn as you see, because once somebody reads this, I share teachings on this, and then I open up to any questions that you guys might have related to this chapter. So is there anybody here at the temple or anybody online that has questions about this chapter that you would like to ask? No questions here? Okay. Let me see if we have anything online. Okay, I don't see any questions online either. Okay, so what we'll do then is we'll just go to the next chapter. By the way, what you have in these chapters is you have the words of the Buddha. You saw that, Joe read that. Then you've got this reference that takes you back to the original source teachings out of those 45 volumes of books. This takes you back to show you where this actually came from. So you can see that I didn't just pluck this out of the thin air, that it actually relates back to the original source teachings. And then what you have underneath of that is you have teachings that I'm helping you to understand how this connects to other parts of the Buddha's teachings and how to integrate this into your day-to-day life. Because as you see, the Buddha teaches very clear, very concise, very precise. You don't have to interpret his words or figure out what he's saying, but it's nice to have a dedicated teacher, dedicated practitioner to be able to help you and guide you on this path. You actually wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment all by yourself. You're going to need guidance from a teacher. So this is me kind of helping you to understand all the various facets of that particular teaching. And here I'm just kind of summarizing some of that stuff, but in the book you have it in a lot of detail. Okay, so that's what all that is. Now here's chapter 12. Is there someone who would like to read this one? Yes, sir.
Six ways of wasting one's substance. Householder son, and which are the 6 ways of wasting one's substance, and the noble discipline does not follow. Addiction to strong drink and sloth-producing drugs, substances that cause heedlessness, is one way of wasting one's substance. Haunting the streets and unfitting times is one. Attending fairs is one. Being addicted to gambling is one. Keeping unwholesome company is one. Habitual idleness? No. Idleness is one. Thank you. Householder's son. There are these 6 dangers attached to addiction to strong drink and sloth-producing drugs, substances that cause heedlessness. Present waste of money, increased arguments, liability to sickness, loss of good name, indecent exposure of one's person, weakening of the intellect, wisdom. Householder's son, there are these 6 dangers attached to haunting the streets at unfitting times. One is defenselessness and without protection, and so are one's wife, life partner, and children, and so is one's property. One is suspected of crimes, false reports and pinned on one. One encounters all sorts of unpleasantness. Householder's son, these are these 6 dangers attached to frequenting fairs. One is always thinking, where is their dancing? Where is their singing? Where are they playing music? Where are they reciting? Where is their hand clapping? Where are the drums? Householder's son, there are these 6 dangers attached to gambling. The winner makes enemies. The loser regrets his loss. One wastes one's present wealth. One word is not trusted in the community. One is despised by one's friends and companions. One is not in demand for marriage because a gambler cannot afford to maintain a life partner. Householder's son, these are these 6 dangers attached to keeping unwholesome company. Any gambler, any glutton, any drunkard, any cheat, any trickster, any bully is his friend, his companion. These are the 6 dangers attached to idleness. Thinking it's too cold, one does not work. Thinking it's too hot, one does not work. Thinking it's too early, one does not work. Thinking it's too late, one does not work. Thinking I'm too hungry, one does not work. Thinking I'm too full, one does not work.
All right. Thank you, sir. So this is a rare teaching from the Buddha where you actually see him going into a lot of detail on the cause and effect of certain things that you would do as an individual, certain choices you would make, and what are the results of those kinds of things. So here he's talking about 6 ways of one wasting one's substance. One of the things you might think of when he's talking about one's substance is like your vitality, your vigor. For those of you guys that are Austin Power fans, I think Austin Powers referred to this as your mojo, right? You guys watch that movie? Anybody familiar with that movie? This is like your vitality, your vigor, right? So the Buddha is giving you 6 things that you could do to waste that vitality, that vigor, to be able to essentially move your life forward. He's talking about addiction to substances that cause heedlessness, haunting the streets at unfitting times. I always like hearing that one. I used to haunt the streets at unfitting times. I don't know about you guys. We'll explain what each one of these things are. Attending fairs, being addicted to gambling, unwholesome company, and then habitual idleness. So here, this first one is addiction to substances that cause heedlessness. Well, if you've ever had any kind of substance addictions, or maybe you currently have some of those, you can see that these things are actually true. This is where you independently verify the teachings of the Buddha, that he's showing you why it's unwise here to actually have this, because you end up losing your money, you experience increased arguments with people, you have certain sicknesses, because of those substances that you're putting into the body. You lose your good name, meaning your reputation among the community. Indecent exposure, right? You could actually do this. I'm sure you've had experiences where people, either you or people around you, actually have done this kind of thing. And it also weakens your intellect, right? In terms of your ability to have wisdom and then apply that wisdom in your day-to-day life. So you might have experienced this yourself or seen other people that have been experiencing this kind of thing. Then when he talks here about haunting the streets at unfitting times, this would be like going out at like 1 a.m. in the morning, 2 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m. in the morning. If you choose to do that, that's your choice. But typically at those hours, a city becomes a different place. Even a place like Chiang Mai that has a lot of people who are into wholesome things and things are very peaceful here. When you go out at really late at night, it's a different type of city than it is during the daytime. The people who are interested in doing wholesome things usually go out in the daytime, and the people who aren't interested in wholesome things, they will oftentimes go out late at night. So if you go out late at night, you're going to encounter a lot of things that are unwholesome. It doesn't matter what city you're in. And if you would like to get to the point where your mind is awake and you're experiencing wholesome results in your day-to-day life, you're going to need to interact with people that are doing wholesome things so you can build up your life and experience wonderful life. So the Buddha is talking here about 6 dangers that would occur by going out late at night and doing this on a regular basis. And you can see this for yourself. So I don't know that I need to go through each one of these and explain them to you. Maybe I'll explain this one for you because sometimes people have questions about this. What the Buddha is talking about here is that if you constantly indulge in pleasures of entertainment, then your mind's going to get addicted to this. There's no harm in being entertained. An enlightened being is actually enjoying life way more than an unenlightened being. Sometimes when people see these pictures of the Buddha around where he's in meditation looking very solemn, they tend to think that enlightened beings just sit around and they're solemn all day long. This isn't true. Enlightened beings are having a blast. They're having a great time. In fact, they're having way more time than any unenlightened beings would ever have. But if you allow your mind to constantly indulge in entertainment, then your mind's going to constantly be looking for that next thing, right? So during his lifetime, fairs or festivals were the primary form of entertainment, where today people might look to social media or YouTube or things like this. And if you indulge in that stuff where you're not doing it kind of in a moderate way, then you're going to be constantly wondering, where's the next video? Who posted that video? Who's saying what on social media? How many friends do I have? How many likes do I have? How many loves do I have, right? You're going to be constantly worrying about and obsessively thinking about these things. And your mind can't just rest and be at ease because your mind's constantly worrying about what's going on social media. So that's what the Buddha is talking about here, is that the mind's obsessively thinking about, oh my gosh, where can I go find some entertainment? Because the mind is attached to it, rather than focusing your time and attention towards moving your life forward. So this would be a waste of one's substance, where your mind is constantly thinking about, where's my next entertainment going to come from? So there's other ones here that the Buddha is talking about with gambling. He's talking about unwholesome company or friends. And then he's talking about idleness, where someone is just never really interested in working. There's always an excuse of why I can't work. It's either too cold or too hot. It's either too early or too late. Maybe I'm too hungry or too full. There's never the ideal time to work. So idleness is going to waste your substance, meaning you're not going to have vigor and vitality to move your life forward and experience success in your day-to-day life. So what you would do with a teaching like this is, when you read it and you learn it and you independently verify it and you see that it's true, then you work on eliminating these 6 things out of your life. So you learn it, investigate it, examine it, like what we just did. Then you start reflecting on it to verify, oh my gosh, the Buddha is actually really true here. I've seen these things for truth. And then you start practicing his teachings. You integrate this into your life, where you now avoid substances that cause heedlessness. You now avoid going out at unfitting times. You now avoid constant entertainment and seeking more and more entertainment. You avoid gambling. You avoid unwholesome friends and companions. And then you avoid idleness. And this is what's going to help move your life forward to create more and more success in your day-to-day life. So any questions on this chapter? Anything you guys would like to ask? No questions? Okay, let's see if we have any questions here. Okay, so let's do one more and see what we can learn here, and then we'll just kind of wrap things up. Okay, let's see what we've got. This is a lot of information. Okay, 5 chords of sensual pleasure. So someone who would like to read this? Yes, ma'am. We have mics here, and they're in the back as well.
5 cores of sensual pleasure. Monks, there are these 5 cores of sensual pleasure. What are the 5? 1. Forms recognizable by the eye that are wished for, desired, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire, and provocative of craving. 2. Sounds recognizable by the ear that are wished for, desired, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of craving. 3. Odors recognizable by the nose that are wished for, desired, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of craving. 4. Flavors recognizable by the tongue that are wished for, desired, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of craving. 5. Physical objects recognizable by the body that are wished for, desired, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of craving. These are the 5 cores of sensual pleasure. As to those ascetics and Brahmins who are tied to these 5 cores of sensual pleasure, obsessed with them and completely committed to them, and who use them without seeing the danger in them or understanding the escape from them, it may be understood of them. They have met with calamity, met with disaster. The evil one may do with them as he likes. Suppose a forest deer who was bound lay down on a heap of traps. It might be understood of him. He has met with calamity, met with disaster. The hunter can do with him as he likes, and when the hunter comes, he cannot go where he wants. As to those ascetics and Brahmins who are not tied to these 5 cores of sensual pleasure, who are not obsessed with them or completely committed to them, and who use them, seeing the danger in them and understanding the escape from them, it may be understood of them. They have not met with calamity, not met with disaster. The evil one cannot do with them as he likes. Suppose a forest deer who was bound lay down on a heap of traps. It might be understood of him. He has not met with calamity, not met with disaster. The hunter cannot do with him as he likes, and when the hunter comes, he can go where he wants. Suppose a forest deer is wandering in the forest wilds. He walks without fear, stands without fear, sits without fear, lies down without fear. Why is that? Because he is out of the hunter's range. So too, quite distant from sense desires, distant from unwholesome mental states, he enters and resides in the first jhana, which is with thinking and pondering, based in seclusion, filled with excitement and joy. This monk is said to have blindfolded Mara, to have become invisible to the evil one by depriving Mara's eye of its opportunity. This follows with the second jhana, the third jhana, the fourth jhana. The space is infinite, the consciousness is infinite, the base of nothingness, the base of neither perception nor non-perception. The discourses are identical except for the reference to each attainment. Again, By completely surmounting the base of neither perception nor non-perception, a monk enters upon and resides in the elimination of perception and feeling, and his taints are destroyed by his seeing with wisdom. This monk is said to have blindfolded Mara, to have become invisible to the evil one by depriving Mara's eye of its opportunity, and to have crossed beyond attachment to the world. He walks without fear, stands without fear, sits without fear, lies down without fear. Why is that? Because he's out of the evil one's range.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So as I was sharing at the beginning, the teachings of the Buddha are to guide you to this enlightened mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you have eliminated all those discontent feelings, the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated from the mind. But you need to understand what's causing these feelings. And that's what the Buddha teaches you as part of his teachings, that cause and effect. So if you understand what's causing these feelings, then you can actually eliminate them. And that's what he's starting to do here. And he does it in a more specific way in some of his more beginning teachings. This is a little bit of a deeper teaching, which I'll explain to you guys in a moment. But just to share with you guys a few more of the benefits of getting to this enlightened mental state is that the mind's going to be focused. You'll have concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Because when the mind's unenlightened, it'll be shaken up. It'll be unsteady and unstable. But when you train your mind and your mind's well disciplined, it'll actually be focused. You'll have concentration, clarity, and deep memory. But in the unenlightened state, your mind actually won't have those things. And you might see that as part of your day-to-day life, that you lack some of those qualities. You'll notice that by the time you get to enlightenment, that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming. Where in the unenlightened state, you'll have a certain amount of bitterness, harshness, and hostility in your mind. And that's going to come out in your relationships, and it's going to damage your relationships. So by the time someone gets to enlightenment, all their relationships are harmonious. They are able to conduct their relationships with ease. You'll notice that you're not even in a bad mood anymore, that it's physically impossible for an enlightened being to experience a bad mood because the causes and conditions that produce that have been uprooted and eliminated out of the mind. So part of getting to this enlightened mental state is understanding what's causing the mind to stay in the unenlightened state. The Buddha discovered these 10 individual pollutions in the mind. He refers to them as the 10 fetters. What a fetter is that during his lifetime, if they were trying to keep you confined to a certain area, they would attach a fetter around your ankle. What a fetter is a shackle, a chain, and a ball. And they would just keep you in this open field. Where today we put prisoners in jail cells, where during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would attach a fetter around your ankle. So when he discovered these 10 individual pollutions, he refers to them as fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. One of the fetters out of the 10 that he discovered is something called sensual desire. What sensual desire is where your mind is longing, yearning through your sense spaces, wanting permanently agreeable contact. And you can only experience pleasant feelings if you have agreeable contact. And if you have disagreeable contact, you will experience painful feelings. What the sense bases are, or what the sensual desire is doing, is your mind is longing, yearning through your senses. Your eyes, ears, nose, the tongue, the body, and then there's the mind itself. Your mind is longing, yearning through these, wanting permanently agreeable contact. And if you experience agreeable contact, then you'll experience pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, or others. But if you experience disagreeable contact through these sense spaces, then you'll experience the painful feelings. So let me give you some examples of this so you understand what I'm talking about. Let's just say you're sitting at a stoplight and somebody pulls up to you in a car with a certain type of music that you like, and you listen to this music, and you now hear a sound through your ear that is agreeable to you. You might be like, wow, that's my jam. All right, let's go. Let's party. You might be dancing in your seat, having a good old time, clapping your hands, singing. Oh, man, that's my jam. All right, right? And now you're so happy because you're hearing a sound through your ear that is agreeable to you. But now you pull up to the next traffic light and somebody else pulls up to you with a different type of music, and you don't listen to this type of music. And now you see that music as being disagreeable. And now having that come into your ear as a sound, you find that to be disagreeable. You get angry or frustrated. You experience painful feelings. Well, it's not the music that's causing that, and it's not the person who's playing the music. It's the mind having sensual desire. It's craving for permanently agreeable contact. While you live in an impermanent world, you're not going to hear things that are permanently agreeable to you. This is why when someone's polite, kind, friendly, respectful to you, you get happy and you get excited. But then when someone's impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful, you get angry and frustrated. Now, we're not talking about what's wise and unwise, because obviously it's wise to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to people. But you live in an impermanent world. Some people are going to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to you. Other people are going to be bitter and harsh and hostile. The only type of person that's going to be polite and respectful at all times is an enlightened being, because they fully transform their mind and fully train their mind. But unenlightened beings, which the world is full of a lot of those, you're going to experience this bitterness and harshness and hostility sometimes. They're going to be impolite, unkind, unfriendly, disrespectful. But if you crave permanently for people to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful, when you hear that disagreeable sound coming through your ear of them saying something, you're going to be angry or frustrated. It's happening with all your senses, whether it's your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, or the mind itself. So what the Buddha is doing essentially is he's giving you an instruction manual to this being who you are. You know, everything that we have in the world pretty much comes with an instruction manual. You could probably get a water pitcher from the store and it probably has an instruction manual, right? Fill up the water to a certain level, pour it like this, right? Even a pitcher of water probably has an instruction manual. But nobody gave you an instruction manual to this being who you are, right? That's what the Buddha is doing, is he's teaching you about this being who you are so you understand how this being functions. And the way this being functions in the unenlightened state is when you have agreeable contact through these sense spaces, you'll get pleasant feelings. And when you have disagreeable contact, you'll get painful feelings. Here's another example so you can see it and independently verify it. Say you're walking down the street and you pass by a flower shop and you get an odor of the flowers coming out of the flower shop in your nose. You might be like, oh, wow, that is beautiful. That's an amazing smell. I could stand here and whiff that all day long, right? But then you walk a few more steps and you get a whiff of the sewer and now you're repulsed by that. Ugh. That's horrible. Why don't somebody cover that sewer up? Oh my gosh, what is going on out here? This place is miserable, right? This is the mind having sensual desire. It wants permanently agreeable contact through these sense spaces where you live in an impermanent world, and you're going to experience things that are coming through these senses that you disagree with. But you don't have to react with negative emotions or unwise emotions, these painful emotions. You don't have to react that way. You can just understand, that sewer smells pretty ripe. Let's keep walking, right? You can just maintain your calmness and composure, understanding this is an impermanent situation, and just keep walking, right? You don't have to complain about how bad the world is and gosh, people are polluting and oh, why can't we just be better and blah, 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 blah. You don't have to do that, right? Of course, these things need to be improved and we can make wiser decisions as human beings, but standing there on the street and complaining about it isn't actually helping anybody at all. So the Buddha is teaching you what's going on in your mind, and there's these 5 chords of sensual pleasure that he's talking about. This is the way that the mind longs and yearns. So for example, there is an eye, and then the eye sees physical forms. And the chord is the longing, yearning for that physical form. So let's just say you're at the mall and you're walking through the mall and you see a pair of shoes in the window. Your eye is seeing a physical form of the shoes. And now the chord of sensual pleasure is, oh, I want to get those shoes. Oh, I just want to get those shoes so badly. If I can get those shoes on my feet, oh, it's going to be so great. My friends at work are going to see my feet and oh, people are going to really like my shoes. I just can't wait to get those shoes on my feet. And you're so excited. And you go into the store and they have your shoes and you're so excited. Oh, I'm going to get my shoes today. But if you go into the store and they don't have your size and you can't get those shoes, now you're angry or frustrated. This is your mind itself that's causing this. It's not the shoe store that's causing it. It's the mind longing, yearning. It's these 5 chords of sensual pleasure. So what the Buddha is saying is if somebody has these 5 chords of sensual pleasures, then they're going to have a certain amount of danger, a certain amount of discontentedness, a certain amount of fear. But if you don't, then the mind is actually going to be quite stable and quite peaceful. He's talking about this being of Mara here. Some of you guys might understand this being as the devil or Satan or Lucifer. You might have heard of this being talked about in that way. This is a formless being that exists in the world that is interested in causing calamity in the world. This is actually a being that you may or may not have had interaction with. Some people have independently verified that this being exists. Some people haven't had that interaction. But remember, the teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. But this being Mara is a real true being. It's a formless being that is interested in causing calamity in the world. And it will tempt you to be able to do unwise things. This being and beings operating on its behalf. So the Buddha is talking about this deer, that if you have this central pleasure in your mind and you're longing, yearning for central pleasures, it's like you're being trapped by this being of Mara. That's the hunter, right? But if you don't have this longing, yearning through your sense bases, then you're free. And now you're out of the hunter's range, right? And now you can walk without fear. Because if you have central pleasure, for example, let's just say you have a phone, which many of us do, right? If you're holding on to this and craving it to be permanent, now you're going to have fear. Like say you misplace it, or say you leave it at a restaurant and you walk out of the restaurant and you're 5 minutes out of the restaurant and you're like, oh my gosh, my phone, I left my phone. And now you're really fearful about that. And you run back to the store to go get your phone. That's because of your central pleasure. Your mind's craving for this phone to be permanent. But you can also understand, I left my phone at the store. Let me go back and see if they have that. And now you can calmly make your way back to the store. But you're not able to do that when you have central pleasure. When you have these 5 chords of central pleasure, your mind's holding on to this. Your mind's longing, yearning for it. There's this cord where your mind is attached to this phone. It's like a string or a cord. And what the Buddha is teaching you to do is cut that cord, where you can understand that, yeah, I can have a phone, but I just am not going to be attached to it. Understanding that it's permanent. I'm going to put a screen protector on it. I'm going to put a protection on it. I'm going to take care of it and make wise decisions, but I'm not going to hold it as it's going to be permanent. This is the middle way, right? If you were holding on to it, craving for it to be permanent, and you were obsessively trying to hold on to it, you'd be fearful and your mind be shaken up when it has a problem. But if you're all the way on the other side, where you could care less about your phone and you just threw it around and it would easily get broken, right? And now you're going to have to constantly be paying money to buy a new phone. So there's a middle way here where you don't have your mind craving for it to be permanent, but you also aren't just throwing it around and not taking care of it. But in the middle, maybe you do have a protection on it. And maybe you do wisely put it in a certain place to make sure that it stays nice. But fully understanding that this phone is impermanent. Someday it's going to get lost. Someday it's going to get stolen. It's going to break. It's going to no longer work. And when that impermanence comes to visit you, you can just understand, guess I need a new phone, instead of being upset or angry or frustrated. Because if you're attached to it, you'll be angry or frustrated or have fear or some other discontent feeling. So there's ways for you to have this object and not be attached to it, because the attachment isn't the object itself. It's the way that the mind longs and yearns for it to be permanent. So you can train your mind to have these material objects, to have relationships, to have things like money and other things like this, but just not be attached to it. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you to do. And there's a core central teaching called the Eightfold Path, which is what you would like to start with. As a beginning student on the path to enlightenment, you would like to start with what's called the 3 universal truths and the 4 noble truths. And you would like to start with this core central teaching of the Eightfold Path, which the 3 universal truths and 4 noble truths are part of. And that's why I suggested you guys start with this first book. Not this one, the other one. Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This is the best book to start with. Chapter 4 and 5 are actually the core central teaching of the Buddha of the Eightfold Path. And I'm going to be teaching that next week is going to be chapter 4 on Sunday. And then the following Sunday will be chapter 5. And then I have courses and stuff that you can learn from as well. Not this week coming up, but the following week, the first week of March, I have a Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course where I'm going to be helping students to develop an understanding of all the foundational teachings. But this is a teaching that's going in deeper to help you understand what these 5 chords of central pleasures are. But at a higher level, there's beginning teachings that you would learn that then help you. This type of teaching helps you to get deeper and deeper into it, so you can really see what your mind is doing. Because once you understand what your mind's doing, now you can actually work with it skillfully to train it so that it's not doing that anymore, or you're not longing, yearning, and chasing after things, and you can only be happy when you get what you want. You would like to get to the point where you can be happy all the time. It's called unconditional happiness, because in the unenlightened state, you're experiencing conditional happiness. If it's sunny outside, you'll be happy. But if it's raining, you'll be sad or frustrated. If you have a bank account balance up here, you'll be really happy. But when it goes down here, you'll be sad or frustrated. This is called conditional happiness. It's kind of like if my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if I have this much money in my bank account, if I have this type of house and this type of car, then I'll be happy. So your happiness is shrinking. You're sabotaging your ability to be happy. And it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller the more conditions that you have, because all those conditions can't be met permanently. And the Buddha is teaching you how to get rid of all of that, and you can get to unconditioned happiness, getting rid of this in your mind, not getting rid of your relationships, not getting rid of your material possessions, but getting rid of your mind having these cords where you're holding on to things, craving for them to be permanent. Because then you can get to unconditional happiness. If it's sunny outside or if it's raining, you can be happy either way, right? You understand this is impermanence. It's normal. If your bank account balance is up here or it's down here, you can still be happy, right? But if you have a craving, if you have these cords, you can't be happy all the time because your mind is bound up like this deer bound up in those traps. Okay, any questions on this chapter? Anything you guys would like to ask? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, if you could use a mic, that would be great. The people online will appreciate that.
After hearing all of you said, I know that you mentioned more about accepting, like accepting something come, accepting something go, don't just hold it there. But what I want to ask is about courage, because sometimes we wanted to have something, like chasing for something. For example, if I'm at school, I want to chase for good grades. If I like someone, I wish him to like me back. I wanted to like attracting him, something like that. All of the things I wanted to chase off, and I would have expectation. How can I deal with this expectation if I lose, if I fail? How should I deal with the expectation and just accepting it?
So you can train your mind to not expect it. But also you're not on the other side where you could care less about what's going on in your life. That's what the unenlightened mind can usually see very clearly, is either the chasing, the longing, the yearning, the desiring, or your mind will swing to the other side where you're dull and lethargic and care less about what's going on. The Buddha is inviting you to come to the middle way where you can gradually pursue your goals, objectives, or interests through wise decision making, where you're not forming your feelings on whether you accomplish that thing or not. If you have a goal, and if you get that goal accomplished, you're happy. And if you don't get it, you're sad or frustrated. That's actually not a goal. That's a craving, desire, attachment. That's the mind longing, yearning. And this craving, desire, attachment is masquerading as a goal. A true goal is something you can work your way towards, and you can maintain your happiness whether you accomplish it or not, because it's a goal. It's not something you're not going to accomplish every goal because of the universal truth of impermanence. So if you're 80% of your way towards your goal, you could look at it and say, I'm 80% of the way there. Well, I could extend my timeline and give myself more time, or I could add more resources, allow me to accomplish this goal. Or, you know what, I'm fine with the 80%. I actually don't need to go any further. I can be just fine with this, right? So that's a true goal, that you're making wise decisions towards achieving this objective, but you're not basing your feelings on whether you accomplish it or not, because you're not always going to accomplish the things you set out to accomplish. But by you putting expectations on yourself of what you want, and you can only be happy if you get what you want, you're sabotaging your ability to be happy permanently, because you live in an impermanent world and you're not going to always get what you want. So you can do all the things that you mentioned, like pursuing a career, whether it's a boyfriend or girlfriend or anything like this, a husband, wife, increased levels of income. You can pursue all these things from the middle way, but you just need to train your mind how to do it, because the unenlightened mind will chase and chase and chase, and you'll put expectations on yourself. And now you'll end up making unwise decisions, and you'll end up being stressed and having anxiety and fear and all these other things because the mind's not getting what it wants. So this core central teaching that I mentioned of the Eightfold Path is what you would like to start out with. You would like to start out learning that. And I've taught this many times. I teach it probably 2 or 3 or 4 times a month, and it's recorded on our YouTube channel, on our podcast, and our books, our audiobooks. Everything's available at no cost. You can even get personal guidance where you sit down with me and I will help you to be able to understand. So this is kind of like a deeper teaching, but I would encourage you to start with this Eightfold Path, chapter 4 and 5 of that first book. That's the best place to start. And you can see the books here. You can download them. You can get them by printing it yourself, or you can reimburse us for the printing costs, because that way we can go out and get books for other people. But you really need to spend some time to be able to learn, because it's not like a quick fix. Nowadays people are used to taking a pill and 30 minutes later your headache's gone. That's not the way your mind's going to get to enlightenment. It took the Buddha 6 years to get to enlightenment. So it's going to take you some time, but it's a permanent fix. Once you get your mind to this enlightened mental state, it's physically impossible for you to ever experience any discontent feelings ever again. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so I think what I'll do then, since I don't see any questions online, or actually, hold on, there is a question here. It says, sensual pleasure, can it be controlled? You can control it, but as long as you have sensual pleasure, Calvin, there's going to be discontentedness as long as your mind is longing, yearning. So what the mind needs to learn how to do is how to enjoy something without longing, yearning for it. So I'll give you an example. Like, let's just say a piece of chocolate cake. Let's just say you go to this restaurant, and every time you go to this restaurant, you get this piece of chocolate cake, and boy, does it taste good. And you get all these pleasant feelings with this piece of chocolate cake, right? And you do this maybe every day. You go to this restaurant and eat this chocolate cake. Well, at some point, you're going to show up to this restaurant, and there's not going to be the chocolate cake there, because this chocolate cake is impermanent. And when you show up and the chocolate cake's not there, you'll be angry or frustrated that it's not there because of the sensual pleasure. The mind is longing, yearning for this flavor on the tongue, and it can only be happy if it gets that chocolate cake on the tongue. And if you can't get it, that's where you're angry or frustrated or annoyed. So what you would like to do is train your mind how to enjoy this chocolate cake through eating the chocolate cake, but without conditioned feelings. And now when you're eating this chocolate cake, you can train your mind how to enjoy it, but you're not clinging to it, craving for it to be permanent, understanding that it is impermanent, that there's going to be a time where you show up to this restaurant and they don't have your chocolate cake, and that's okay. And your mind needs to learn how to do that. And that's what the Eightfold Path is going to teach you how to do. So I'm just going to end class here by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and grow and develop on the path to enlightenment. You're welcome to learn more if you like. Tomorrow we have classes at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., which are really great for people just starting out, because that's our group learning program. Tomorrow at 6:30, we have meditation here, where I'm just going to be guiding students in meditation. Then I'm just going to open up to any and all questions that you have. So you're welcome to come to any of those events tomorrow. And then next week on Wednesday, we have meditation here, where I'll be guiding students in loving kindness meditation, which is a meditation to help you eliminate your anger, hatred, ill will, and all the lesser versions, even the slightest dislike. Right now, you might actually have people you like and people that you dislike, but that dislike is actually coming from your own mind, because you're craving permanence. If people do things this way, you like them, and the mind's craving permanence, wanting everybody to be a certain way. But when they don't do things that way, you'll dislike them. But the mind will think that it's other people who are causing that dislike, where it's actually coming from your own mind. So I'm going to be doing loving kindness meditation with students on Wednesday, which is going to help you to be able to eliminate all that anger, sadness, frustration, and then also the dislike towards others, as well as in your own mind. You might have negative self-talk or inner dialogue where you're degrading and diminishing yourself. And it's no fun walking around with that. So I'm going to teach students how to eliminate that with loving kindness meditation. So as you guys have questions, you're more than welcome to reach out. I'm here to help you guys. Whatever you do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.